This video lesson, I will discuss the history of European monetary integration. So let's start first with the first steps towards economic integration. So I do not go to details of how the European Union started, but the historical roots go back to the European coal and steel community that was established in the early 50s by six members: Belgium, France, Italy, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, and West Germany. So this was very much politically motivated because after the Second World War, many European leaders agreed that economic cooperation and integration would be the best guarantee against the repetition of the devastating wars. So this kind of more trade and this kind of establishing a single common market started with just two products, coal and steel, and a limited number of Western European countries. So that goes back to the end of World War II and early 50s. But still in the early 50s and 60s until the 1970s, the Western European countries were part of the Bretton Woods system, which I have briefly mentioned already before, but let's briefly repeat that after the World War II, 44 countries, including the USA and Canada and Western European countries, they guaranteed convertibility of their currencies to US dollars and using fixed exchange rate with the possibility to deviate 1% in one direction or another. And at that time, the US dollar was also tied to the gold standard, so dollars could be converted to gold bullion at the given fixed price. So the idea, of course, with this gold standard is to maintain this the value of the US dollar, and then of course all these other currencies that were also tied to it according to the Bretton Woods system. And the International Monetary Fund was also established that time to monitor these exchange rates and, if necessary, then lend reserve currencies to countries with the balance of payment deficits. So this worked for several decades, but by the end of the 1960s, then the gold standard had become difficult to maintain. And somewhat surprisingly, in 1971, the US President Richard Nixon announced that this gold window will be closed, and then the USA became a fiat currency. And that sort of started to then it was the beginning of the end of this Bretton Woods system. So in February 1973, then Western European EEC countries and Japan decided to let their currencies float. And in 1976, then this Bretton Woods was formally ended. So now in the early 70s, then the Western European countries, they found themselves in a situation that they had used to have this kind of financial controls which maintains this kind of fixed exchange rates and monetary policy autonomy, but doesn't have like freedom of financial flows. And suddenly then the Western European countries find themselves in the world of floating exchange rates, and that sacrifices this exchange rate stability and creates more uncertainty. So then in the late 70s, in 1979, then eight European countries, including France, Germany, Italy, Belgium, Denmark, Ireland, Luxembourg, and the Netherlands, established this so-called European Monetary System, or EMS. So this would be kind of similar to the Bretton Woods system earlier, but of course considering these eight European currencies. So these eight European currencies would be mutually backed using fixed exchange rates, and there could be fluctuations up or down by 2.25%, for some currencies even up to 6%. So somewhat wider spread than in the Bretton Woods arrangement. And what would happen then if then there is like currency would tend to appreciate more or depreciate more than this 2.25%, then the central banks would intervene and start to buy or sell currency to bring this currency exchange rate back to this kind of within this band of 2.25%. So later, Spain joined in 89, the Great Britain joined in 1990, and Portugal also joined in 1992. However, by the time that coming to the 1990s, then there was, of course, a lot of political changes, and the geopolitical situation changed. The West Germany and East Germany were reunified in 1990. There was this the Soviet Union collapsed and so on. So in Germany there was an economic boom and higher inflation. So this kind of growth rates were departing between these EMS members, and there were also speculative attacks to some currencies. So, for example, the British pound. Then the central bank had to defend it initially, but eventually, then in 92, Great Britain and Italy had to leave the EMS exchange rate mechanism, and there was this kind of European currency crisis. And in 1993, then these bands were increased up to 15% plus or minus because there were so much speculative attacks. So this kind of fixed exchange rates couldn't be maintained during this kind of currency crisis of the early 90s. On the other hand, then in 1991, these European leaders also then agreed about the introduction of a single European currency. So at that time, they didn't really coin a name for that, but they just agreed upon this starting of the political process towards that and the establishment of the European Central Bank. So probably also this kind of speculative attacks and this kind of difficulty to maintain this kind of fixed exchange rates between national currencies then led also the European leaders to want to have this kind of more tighter monetary union and establish a single currency. And by 1993, then all 12 member states of the EU had then ratified the Maastricht Treaty. And then in 1995, also Austria, Finland, and Sweden joined the economic and monetary union. So notice that the euro was not established like directly in the early 90s. So in the Maastricht Treaty, then it was agreed upon a gradual process. So there were the so-called Maastricht Convergence Criteria for the countries that wanted to join this economic and monetary union, or EMU. So the most important criteria are these 4 points introduced here. So the inflation rate should be no more than 1.5% above the average rate of the EU member states with the lowest inflation. So the difference between the high inflation countries and low inflation countries should not be more than 1.5%. Then the exchange rate should be maintained at the stable rate without devaluing on its own initiative. And then there are also restrictions on the public sector, also government deficits relative to the GDP, except in exceptional and temporary crises. And then also the public debt or government debt should be below 60% of its GDP. So this initially this inflation and exchange rate, the first and two, were meant for this kind of temporary criteria for this transition periods towards joining the monetary union. However, third and fourth were also then maintained for member states which had already joined. And later on, of course, this kind of public debt ceilings had to be also then widened. But I come back to that when I talk about the European debt crisis. So this notice that this Maastricht Convergence Criteria, then they were followed up in the 1990s, and by May 1998, then there were 11 EU countries that satisfied this convergence criteria, and they would be the founding members of the European Monetary Union. And these included Austria, Belgium, Finland, France, Germany, Ireland, Italy, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Portugal, and Spain. So initially, Greece failed to qualify this criteria, but then it would enter EMU a little bit later in 2001. And since then, there have been several new members to the monetary union: Slovenia in 2007, Cyprus and Malta 2008, Slovakia 2009, and then the Baltic countries, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and the last one has been Croatia in 2023. And the next ones in the queue, so Bulgaria is planning to then enter by the end of 2025, and then there's also Romania is planning to join. So this then leads to this current situation in the EU. So this map shows that with the blue color, the member states of the monetary union, which are using euro as the currency. The orange color indicates some small states that are not EU members but are still using euro as a currency. Red one also includes Montenegro and Kosovo are using also effectively euro, but they're not also EU member states. With green color, it's indicated Bulgaria, which is planning to join this year. Denmark is indicated with purple. So Denmark does not have to join, but it has an option to join if it wants to. And then there are this yellow color includes Sweden, Poland, Czech Republic, Hungary, and Romania that are currently not part members in the monetary union. So notice that we have this kind of, if you think about the Eurozone, so we have mainly all of the countries in the Western Europe and also most in the Southern Europe are part. Then we have in the north, we have Finland and the Baltic countries, but then we have also this kind of yellow zone in Eastern Europe and Sweden, which are not member states. And then there's of course also Republic of Ireland is the part of the Eurozone, even though it doesn't have a land border with the Western Europe. So for countries like Denmark and Bulgaria, there exists this revised exchange rate mechanism ERM2, which is similar to this previous EMS. So this defines this kind of rules that how these national currencies can fluctuate around zero. So there is like plus minus 15% relatively wide band for these currencies. So this is can be seen as some kind of a waiting room for this currencies that could be then switched to euro. So currently there is the Danish crown and the Bulgarian lev are part of this revised exchange rate mechanism, or ERM2. So that's the brief history with European integration. So in the next lesson, I will discuss more economics and the so-called credibility theory. See you then.